All right, Tanawah, we're back again. We're gonna get right into it. We're just seeing how you're doing, and since the last time we talked, what have you been up to?
Well, so last time we talked, we've gotten on the road and we started serving the states again. So just as I said before, the next step is we gotta put the judicial branch on notice. We got to get these judges to, so that they can't claim that they weren't aware. And so when you go out, I could go out and I could serve all the judges. Obviously, that would take forever. I could go out to the different counties and serve the superior judges, or I could just go to the top judicial officer in the state because notice to agents, notice to principal, and notice to principals, notice to agent. So when you notify the highest judicial officer in the state, being the Supreme Court of the state, then they're responsible for divulging the information to all their subordinates. And so when you bring an allegation, I mean, a valid allegation of criminal conspiracy like the one that I had, where the prosecuting attorney is relying upon an inferior state law to deprive a person right guaranteed by the Constitution, which is, deprivation of rights under color of law. And then when the judicial officer, the judge, decides to sign and hold the person over based on that incorrect charging instrument, he establishes the conspiracy to deprive of rights. It's as clear as that. When we present that particular affidavit to the top judicial officer in the state, they can either do one of two things. They can take action as lawfully required and thus tell all the judges and all their subordinates, no, you got to start obeying the law, do the right thing, or they can ignore it, in which case all the judges are opposing party. We can name every single one of them because if the top judicial officer in the state decides not to act as lawfully required to mitigate their culpability within a criminal conspiracy, then they just implicated everybody in it. So, we don't want to waste a whole lot of time going around and serving hundreds of thousands of people trying when we can just do one, just one. Go to the Supreme Court, find the clerk of court, and serve. So that's what we've been doing. I did 10 states last week, all across the North, or the preceding week, and then last week we did 6. We didn't quite get finished as far as I wanted to. We still have a little bit work to do on the West, but my intent is to be back in Washington, D.C. on September 29th, and let's see what they got to say about this round. So the last time we went around, we served all the attorney generals, which is the top law enforcement officer within the state. So we put all of the attorneys and all the prosecutors on notice of the existence of the criminal conspiracy. And because the attorney general failed to take action, I can name every bar member is opposing party. The attorneys can't represent the people on this issue. So we're trying to make it so that, honestly, there's no court in the country other than the Supreme Court of the United States that can oversee this, because they were all given an opportunity to be able to take lawful action as required, and they failed to do so. So,
And that does bring me up to another question: is what have we had as a response from any of the Supreme Courts or the Attorney Generals? Anything?
nothing. But again, I don't expect that. America's not just going to wake up and say, "Oh, we're doing things wrong. Let's start doing it right." I mean, you have to be able to come to terms with the fact that we are doing wrong, which is going to take a while. It has taken quite some time. But the thing is that it was Justice Gorsuch's book that said, "Get going," right? Because Justice Gorsuch's book, it's out there right now. You can pick it up, and he's talking about all this. Like, the country is primed for this issue because his book is a scathing report on the fact that the judicial system, or the whole system itself, is relying upon administrative law, not common law, to deprive people of rights, property, liberty. I mean, it's exactly what we need. But again, so the writ that we have with the Supreme Court is a writ of habeas corpus. When you deal with a writ of habeas corpus, according to Title 28, 2254, you only have to have one justice sign it. You don't have to have majority. You don't even have to have oral arguments. If one justice is willing to sign that writ, it's over. And so, again, if power is not guns and badges and a title, power is actually the ability to influence others in their future decisions. So, as I continue to call these judges out, because that's what I'm doing every time I go to one of these state capitals, I'm calling them out, because we have to do that. We have to tell the truth that these guys they're criminals today. Do they want to continue to be? Well, that's up to them. And so I'm calling them out. I'm making sure that they know that as long as you guys are acting in violation of law, then that's what you are. And again, my hope is that will appeal to their good nature, and eventually one's going to turn around and say, you know what, that's not really who I want to be, and they'll realign their actions with their morals and sign the writ. But that's in a perfect world, brother. I don't know.
So no response as of yet, as we kind of surmised it would probably be. You're going to go to the Supreme Court to kind of put the last pressure point on this whole deal. Have you had any backlash along the road on this journey from some city authorities or different states in particular?
Yeah, we've had a little bit of backlash. Yeah. So I spent I left last week, or I left last Sunday out of Oklahoma. I spent the weekend in Oklahoma for my birthday. I left Sunday at maybe 2 o'clock or something like that, because I had a 10-hour drive to get to where I was going. About an hour after I left, that house got raided, and the friends of mine were taken into custody. They were actually held for 3.5 hours without anything. They weren't sure what they were charged with, or even charged at all. They took the kids and put them into DHS custody, but they're still in jail right now, and I believe no bail. But and we don't have any more information on it. But
Wow.
yeah, there's some backlash on it, and from what I understand, friends of mine have had police stop by asking questions about me. And guys, I'm not doing anything wrong. In fact, I would welcome them to do an investigation on it. Please, I mean, by all means, that's what I want you guys to do. I want you to listen to what I'm saying. I want you guys to dig in and actually go and read some of the stuff that I'm writing. Because if the investigators will do that, we might have to change the heart a little quicker than we planned, But I can't get their attention because they're just not listening. But maybe if we do go down this route where they're actually thinking that I'm a threat, because people are, saying that I'm a threat, which is fine. If that's what they want to say, then good. Investigate me, please. And so I'm traveling by myself again, and we're serving these states. I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing, but there is some pushback out there. There is some people looking for me. Some law enforcement agencies are looking for me. From what I understand, there's a couple of warrants that have been issued in a couple of states. I didn't know what for, and I don't care. That's distraction from what I'm doing. So.
What's driving you, Tanawah? What's the story to get you to this point now, where you are on your own, going against some of the biggest groups, most powerful entities that exist today? What's pushing you? What got you here?
People always say that I'm doing this for one of three things. They say I'm doing it for money, right? They say that I'm doing it for vindication, or they say that I'm doing it for retribution, right? So either I'm going after my ex-wife for the things that she did to me, right? Or I'm doing it because I'm now a felon and I want to get out of that. I want to get out of what happened, right? Because I talked to my wife, which apparently is a felony in Washington State. And then the third thing is money. Well, guys, listen, right? First off, if I were doing it for money, why would I make it all about you guys, right? Why would I make it about the grand jury for everybody, right? I mean, if it were about money, I could have had money a long time ago. It would have been done, over with, walked away. I didn't have to make it about the whole country, about all the prisoners. So, if you think I'm doing this for money, I don't know what to say, guys. I'm sleeping in a car today. Today I got an awesome blessing from Miss Love out of Virginia. She decided she wanted to give me a hotel room. She's got a son who's been sitting in prison for 26 years. The man needs to get out, and I want to help her get him out. And she's a wonderful woman. Thank you, Miss Love, for this hotel room, guys. I've been sleeping in a car for 2 weeks. I do that because you guys don't have money. I accept that. I can't expect anything more than what you can give. And if you're having your civil rights taken from you, that's because you're poor. I mean, it's as simple as that. So, when I realized how enslaved I actually was without even knowing it, and I saw all the slaves around me and how they were being abused and taken advantage of, 9 years ago, I couldn't allow that to continue. You can't unsee that. And so for me to be able to step down and suffer alongside people that I would have never been alongside otherwise was a huge blessing for me, because I was an arrogant prick. I had an engineering firm. I made millions of dollars. I made $870,000 last year. I was in business. That's only $72,000 a month, right? And then all of a sudden, the next day, I'm in jail, with my ex-wife stealing and taking everything from me, and I never got anything back again. But it was through that blessing, through going down to that level, and being able to spend some time with these people that I would have never even looked at otherwise, that they're who I fight for. Because I'll tell you, when I went through my divorce, it was really tough, because I loved her a lot. And I'd never really loved anything before, because my father was gone when I was 2, and my mother was gone when I was 6. I had no parents, so I didn't know how to love. And so now all of a sudden something comes in my life that I love, and then to lose it was just, it was tough. But the point is that sorry, I lost it there for a moment, but
Understand.
Yeah, well, when I have to pause it, I forgot where I was going with that. But So it was a very difficult situation. I love my wife a lot, and I didn't understand what was happening. Honestly, like I didn't know that we were at the place that we had reached, and it was over. Uh, I thought that it was still going to be all right, and so I was hanging on to that belief that it was still going to be all right. But it hurt so much that I guarantee you that if I wouldn't have been in jail, I would have turned to drugs. There would have been a number of other things that I would have done to have tried to ease that pain, and I may not have survived it. I mean, it was that depressing. But these guys in jail, I mean, they gave me life. I mean, they gave me a reason to fight again. I mean, this is what I do. And anybody that doesn't know me, you can look me up. There's plenty of stuff about my past life. I mean, I was the youngest chairman of the National Physical Security Council, right? The top 250 experts of national security in the country. I was the youngest chairman. I was named best and brightest in 2015 by National Security Institute. I mean, I was the chairman of the National Transportation Security Council. I was very, very well respected within Homeland Security in that industry, extremely well respected. And I held a lot of titles, and I made a lot of money, and I did a lot of things that, in hindsight now, I have an obligation to undo, because when I put into place, programs that are spying on citizenry or invading inner privacy, those were the things that I did because we believed that national security was essential to protect government from threats, perceived or otherwise, and those threats tend to be from our own citizens. And so that's a bad path to go down, and we did, and I helped develop those programs, and now I feel a need to have to undo them because they were wrong. Homeland Security or Homeland Security is what we have for national security is simply code word for domestic terrorism. So it's not in the best interest of the people. It's in the best interest of the government and the government needs. So, but these guys, they gave me a reason to live, and through that, I'll fight for them. I'll fight for them all day long because I saw a lot of goodness in these guys. There wasn't a single one of them that was worthless, like I said last time. And I made a lot of friends, in and amongst them, in jail, in time there. So when I came out, I was ready to fight and make sure that that we got them the freedom that they needed to. Yeah.
You found a lot of camaraderie, also, I guess, between this group of men that have all gone through tragic loss, life loss, freedom loss, family loss, love loss. There must have been a connection, obviously, at that point where you kind of felt a sense of humanity that you haven't felt before, something that triggered in you. You have a love of helping others that seems to be you really have a wish to make not just a change for you, but a change for a generation, which is obviously a monumental task.
Yeah. I've seen the best and the worst of America. The worst of America tends to be when government gets involved. When they get involved, they separate us. They try to take control and they don't allow us to figure out how to do it ourselves. But the best is, the hurricanes down in Florida. A few years ago, I was working for Society First. Hurricane came through, and they needed a bunch of just tarps put on roofs. And so we went down there to just help out doing that. At the time, it was more a publicity thing. But when we got there, these guys, they were all these communities and families. They lost power. Their fridges weren't working, and yet we showed up there like idiots without food, not even realizing that the gas station isn't going to have any food, and so we don't have anything to eat. And these families, they come together like, oh well, you're helping with the roof. Let us cook you some. The thing is that when the people come together, right, we fix things. Even in Scripture, anytime there's chaos, you come together. You don't come apart. And so government is telling us to come apart, right? We're in chaos. We need to separate. We need to distance ourselves. That's not what we're supposed to be doing, because the best of America, the best of the people, is when we work together, and we're not doing that today. That's one of the biggest problems across the board. That's one of the things I'm saying individually within our own household. We need to communicate, because communication will resolve any issues, any fight, any conflict. You can do that through communication. But when you bring in outside sources like law enforcement or someone else, and then you get them involved and they separate you, and no contact doors and all this stuff put into place, you cannot resolve any of your conflict. But we can work through it, at the individual level and also at the collective level. So, all of the issues that we're experiencing out here at the state level, at the national level, it's chaotic. It is out of control. But it's out of control because we just don't talk with each other. We've got the divisiveness between two parties. We've got the states they're wanting to break apart because of individual preferences and cultures that are not being noticed and appreciated at the central government. We've got all kinds of these issues, but they all derive from our lack of communication. And that's also a big part of what I'm saying is missing within justice itself. Because when we only allow one side of a story to be told, and then we suppress the other side from telling theirs, we have no idea what the truth is. And we're certainly not going to be able to resolve the conflict. And so thus the hurt and the trauma, whatever existed there before, it doesn't go away. So yeah, I've seen the best and worst American. And there was a point in time, I think, that when all this started, that I lost hope in humanity. Like I was over it. But these guys, they brought it back. You know, when I spent time with them, again, I was in amongst some of the worst, the murderers, rapists. I never saw any bad. The only ones that made me nervous were guards. You go around them. While I was, I went to prison, but that was part of the process here that I had to go through, because in order to challenge the constitutionality of a statute, you have to be directly impacted by a statute. So in order for me to challenge what I'm challenging, I had to go through this. I had to fall, and I had to go through the process, because that's the only way that you can challenge this particular issue. That's why ACLU and whoever else, they can't overcome it, because they cannot challenge the statute. But I can. Anyway, when I first went to prison, I was known as a preacher. That's what they called me, a preacher. But that first Sunday that I was at church, there was probably 20 people tops, maybe. It was, boring, quiet, right? It was just terrible service. But when I left there 18 months later, it was standing room only, 350 people. The line was still out the door 200 feet, because over the time that I was there, something called hope came around. And when that hope started coming in, and these guys started thinking, what if, man? What if he does win this? What if he can do this? There was no fights, right? I mean, we were never locked down. Like it was a completely different atmosphere from what everybody talks about prison normally being. That was not my experience at all. We didn't have problems. There was no. I had some of the gang members, some of the Northsiders. They actually came to me and said, "Hey, could we use your solution to be able to go to the Southsiders and bring some peace together?" Absolutely. I was asked to come and present this case to the black car, a white guy coming in and talking in prison to the black. They asked me to do that. Like, we can break down these barriers, right? When we look out for each other, because race it's nothing, right? It's nothing. The only thing that we have that divides us is the narrative that we permit to come into play. We don't have to fight. We don't have to have those problems. And so when you bring hope to people, you see a massive change in those people. Even people that would typically be violent, they don't want to be, because they don't need it. I mean, so I saw the change. I saw what can happen, and I believe in it. So when God says, this could work, I know there are a lot of people out there. What you guys say? You're saying, "Oh no, that's a bad idea." I'm telling you that I trust God, and God says, "Do this," all through Scripture as well. And so, if you want to be forgiven, right, you have to forgive others, right? And do unto others what you want done to you. If you're going to imprison your brother and sister, then just know that one day those shackles will be worn by you or someone that you love. So, to set ourselves free, it starts by setting those around us free. So Thomas Jefferson said that we gain civil rights as a result of choosing to protect and defend the rights of others. Anybody can fight for their own right. Anybody can do that. That's part of life. But it takes real men to fight for other people. And that's a tough thing to do, because when you fight for other people, all hell comes down on you, right? Because you put yourself in between them and their oppressors, their abusers.
Well, Tanawah, one of the things that I did want to talk about and get your point on is a lot of what you talk about in preaching is you're educating. And we have a lack of education when it comes to these important rights. Yeah. How do we implement change for the future? How do we implement this on a grander scale? You're one person changing the system, but for the future generations, what are some of the things that you've thought of or that we should start to create, manifest within our own communities? A fight.
Well, I mean, you mentioned education. You know that's the core of my proposal for remedy on this. I mean, education is absolutely the number one thing that we should be doing across the board. It needs to be free. It needs to be abundant, and because that's the one thing that helps everybody. It raises up the whole society. Because when you take the poor and you push them down, and you force them into involuntary servitude, so you can just make money off of them, that brings the whole country down. When you raise them up by educating them and making them, better, because you never know who they might be. I mean, the person to cure cancer could be someone sitting on death row right now, and he was meant to be something different, but the system created this monster, and now we're not going to be able to get the talents and things that he was meant to be. But education is absolutely the top. Like you mentioned that last week, you said, or the other week, you said that are we enslaved like this because of a lack of education? And the answer is yes. And then that's why my proposal is education. You've got to focus on that. But part of that is also we got to spend more time with these kids. Like educating the kids is not just send them off to some teacher. These kids, and I'm one of the most guilty people of this, because I was a workaholic. I mean, for the first 9 years of my kids' lives, I was gone every week. I mean, every week. My office was not even in the city or even the state that I lived in. And so for the day that my son was born was the day that I started my engineering firm. And so for the first 9 years of his life, if a client needed me, I was on a plane. I was gone. Didn't matter if it was birthday, Christmas, I was gone. And that was a difficult thing for me to deal with. And I think that at the end of the day, I was perhaps running away from some of my fears, because not having a dad myself, it was difficult for me to believe that I could do it myself. So I think that in some ways I was running away from some of my responsibilities, and then returning with money and saying, here, let's just give you a bunch of that. But anyway, at the end of the day, I think that we've got to spend a lot more time with our kids, because they need us a lot, especially right now, with everything that's going on. When we just hand them off to other people, they're not learning who they are. My son he's supposed to be an image of me. He needs to know who I am in order to be able to be that person that he's meant to be. And so when we spend all our time working and going after money and these other pursuits that they're for selfish interests, I think we're missing out on the greatest treasure that this country has, and that's our youth. It's our kids. So yeah.
I think with what you're talking about too, with education, it creates an environment of hope. And with hope, you eliminate a lot of fear. Fear is one of those things it's debilitating. It lowers your IQ. I mean, it's one of the almost every religious book talks about do not fear. Many times, it's one of the biggest lessons to be learned. But hope is one of those things that you said it can transition and make the change that you want to see.
Yeah.
I think that
hope you can believe in. Fear is just simply unknown. But hope is, this could happen. It may not be plausible, but it could happen. A good example of the hope element is you guys go out and you go to appeal with an attorney, a post-conviction relief, right? And so you appeal through an attorney. You'll spend $50,000 to do that. They win like 1/10 of 1%. That's a long shot right there, right? That's a long, and for $50,000, you're going to do a long shot, and you're going to say that's hope. Or, you guys might say that this will never happen. It'll never happen. They'll never let it happen. But you know what? What if it does, you guys? What if it does? Because all I'm saying is follow the law. I am 100% right. There hasn't been a single person who has been able to counter the argument that I have. There isn't one, right? Government is absolutely silent on this, and the attacks that are coming out there, they're coming at me personally. They're not coming at the argument. So you guys can look at the argument and say it's sound, right? Who cares? They can say anything they want about me, slander me all you want, but you can't attack the argument, and the argument is where the people are going to benefit from. So the long shot, I think, is the opposite side. Continuing to do things the way you're doing it with a post conviction relief, or what if I do win? What if we do follow the law? Right? What if I am right? That's a whole lot less of a long shot. And you don't have to believe in me. This has nothing to do with me. It has to do with the things I'm saying, right? Look up the law yourself. When you see what it says, guess what? That fear is gone. Because the fear that you have of remaining in prison, or the fear that you have of the charges that they put upon you, or the fear that you have that they're going to take your children, well, when you study the laws that I'm telling you to study, that parasite that they place on you, it's released. It has no power. See, this is how they control you. The parasite of fear. They will make you afraid. And through that fear, they actually create the object that they say that you are. So initially, they'll start putting together this profile of you. Oh, she's crazy, whatever, violence, all these things that they'll say that you are, that you know damn good and well that you're not. But you know what happens with fear? Fear causes you to do things that are erratic, right? Causes you to act different. And so now all of a sudden, you're going to manifest those very things that they say that you are, whether you mean to or not. That's how the system creates you. and it does it to lots of people. I mean, they lock you up in jail and deprive you of liberty in these cages, right? Take away your food, take away blankets, and you do all these things because that's going to increase your fear, so that when you get out, you're going to be too afraid to come back. And now you're going to be running. Now you're going to be doing the things that they say that you're going to do, and you're going to look as though you're the very object that they say that you are. So, yeah, the fear is the first thing you have to release. And fortunately for me, I have a very, very strong faith. So, as scary as it is what I'm doing, going up against, what I'm going up against, it's a whole lot smaller when you have faith, man. I mean, at the end of the day, I may not accomplish this, but I'm right, and God doesn't make fools. So, there's gonna be something good coming out of this, but you can't take the red pill and then wake up the next day and say, I want this to go away. No, I took the pill. I've seen it. I know what's going on, and you can't unsee it. So you can't stop what you start. There was a point in time when I was looking at this from my own perspective, like, what am I going to get out of this? You asked that earlier. Well, honestly, my son is going to know what it's like, what it means to be a man, right? He's going to know that because I'm setting an example for him. So if I'm going to be proud of the man that my son becomes, right, then I must first be proud of the man that he emulates. And so this is my opportunity to be able to become the man that I need to be for him, set that example, because if I'm going to be a hero, I better be out there doing something heroic. But if I were to stop now, tuck my tail, that's not going to work. I got to finish this. And I got to make sure that he knows that a husband and a father is going to stand up and do the right thing, even in very difficult situations, and even that doesn't make sense. And so then for my daughters, if they're going to look to me as the example of someone that they're going to marry, then I better be the type of man that I would prove for them. And so I had to become that man as well. And so someday my children, they're going to be able to look back at all this, and despite the fact that it won't remove the hurt of 9 years of this, I think that when they see what has been accomplished by our suffering, I don't think that they will regret having to do this because of the number of people that we're ultimately going to help from the things that we had to go through to reach where we're at. So, yeah.
And you've got, huge, big goals at this point, obviously. What's our short-term goals right now in the next 6 to 8 weeks? Because this is kind of like a final run for you, or it's a final run. This is the next run for you as we work up to you being in Washington, D.C. at the end of September. What does your next 45 days look like? And what's the mission?
We're going to get it signed. The habeas is going to be signed within the next 45 days. I don't know how, but this is going to be over. I'm going to win without even a fight. And I know that. I know that with all my heart. There's a number of reasons why I know that. But I don't have a plan B. If you make a plan B, then that means the plan A is going to fail. I'm not one to do that because I'm not going to go all in on something that I'm like, well, let's go ahead and make a second plan. Guys, right now, when you rob a man of all he has, you made a man with nothing to lose. This is it. Like, there's nothing else behind this. I've spent every cent I've had. I've went through every resource that I have. I mean, we're on fumes at this point, and I don't think I can do another cycle. Each time I come out and I say, okay, this is what we're going to do, and I start to build momentum, people are sidetracked and they say, whoa, wait a second now. I thought we were going to be done over here. I thought this was going to happen. I don't know, you guys. Like I'm playing this just as loose as everybody else. I just know that there's certain things that need to be done, but I see an end. Like I can see it. I can believe in it. I was off in it the last June. I don't feel I'm off in September, but that's where the hope comes in. I will continue to hope until it is accomplished because you can't imagine the impossible being accomplished without visualizing, and the only way you can visualize it was with hope, because otherwise you're just going to turn around and be like, oh, that's impossible, So in order for me to even try to do this, it has to start from faith, and faith means I don't know what the hell I'm doing, man. I just have faith that I'm going to go do it. So God gave me the faith. He said, let's get this, and this is what He would want done. He didn't create anyone to be abused and trod upon by his fellow man. He didn't create anyone to be enslaved so that they can generate revenue for the state, so the state can break the very laws of God against the people. And come on, this is absolutely consistent with what God would demand. So I have faith that I'm serving Him. I have faith that this is what He wants. I think that we have indication that I'm winning too. I mean, we had a lot of good wins, but this these last couple trips, you guys, you got to understand, like I don't have money. The income doesn't come in, and there's specific reasons why that has to be. And I think I talked about it a little bit on last show, but in order for me to walk into the Supreme Court, I can't have any contracts, any state contracts that I would have to violate in order to go there, because that would then place me into a minor status with the state, and then they would send me back to state court and say, "Who are you with them?" So I had to eliminate all these state contracts: the marriage, the children, the job, the bank account, the driver's license. All those things had to be removed so that I could walk in the Supreme Court of my own volition and enter into contracts of my own volition without breaching any existing contracts. So there's a specific reason why I have to operate in the way that I do. So when I left DC to start this last 40-day journey, guys, I never really told a whole lot of people about this, but when I left, I knew that I needed to leave on Thursday in order to finish it on time on June 6th. I didn't have a car at that point in time. I didn't even have money for the gas. And it was Thursday morning. I got just someone showed up with an ambulance. I said, "Here's an ambulance." So all of a sudden, the day that I was supposed to leave, I now had a vehicle that just came out of nowhere. And so I drove it to West Virginia, and it had some car troubles there. I had to get it towed, and got it fixed. Got out of there, and I was supposed to get over to Jefferson City, Missouri. That was where we were supposed to start. Well, I didn't make it all the way there because it broke down 2 more times, and then we ended up stopping in Jeffersontown, Kentucky, not Jefferson City, Missouri, but Jeffersontown. And so then the first stop was Indianapolis, but we got the vehicle fixed, ended up in Indianapolis. So now we got this vehicle that I got on the day that I was supposed to leave. That's already been towed 3 times, new radiator belts and all the rest. And I'm driving into Columbus. We served the Attorney General in Indianapolis. We were on our way into Columbus, thought everything's going to be great now. And about 5 miles out of Columbus, it dies in the middle of the interstate, and it's done. So I get it towed in, and then they told me it's going to be $1,500 to fix it or something. And obviously I can't do that. So now I'm without a vehicle in Columbus, wondering how I'm going to finish this 40-day journey around serving all these attorney generals. Pretty bleak, right? Well, that day I had a little bit of money. I got a bus ticket up to, and I just decided I'm just going to keep going. I'll ride the bus if I have to. So I got a bus ticket up to Lansing, Michigan, and the bus was running late. So I couldn't get on it. And by the time it was arriving, they weren't even allowing me to get on it because there wasn't going to be any connection. So they told me I had to spend the night there. Well, Greyhound ended up giving me a hotel room. Awesome. I got on another podcast at night, the Pete Santilli show. And so Pete Santilli, after I finished the show, he said, "We need to get that guy to Lansing in the morning. So I don't care how much it costs, give him a plane ticket." So I had a plane ticket. I got to Lansing. By the way, I have no vehicle. I have no real plan for what I'm going to do, but they wanted me to go to this sheriff's meeting, this constitutional sheriff's meeting outside of Lansing, and just talk a little bit. And so I did. And within probably 10 minutes of being there, the guy stood up and he's like, "Hey, I got a tour bus. You want a tour bus?" And I wasn't sure if he was really, legitimately offering that. But turns out he was. And so now I had Lamar with this tour bus, and we drove from Lansing, Michigan. And we took it a lot of the way around over to Sacramento, did all those sites. Cost a fortune to do it, $900 per time to fill it up, but everybody was providing, and it was just coming in, just whatever. Well, we got into Sacramento, and Lamar got a phone call from the court. He had some child issue, and the judge said, "If you're not here on Wednesday, then we're going to issue a warrant." So Lamar told me, he's like, "I got to go back to Indiana. Sorry, what do you want to do?" I said, "Well, just drop me off in Carson or in Reno, and I'll just figure out how to get along." And so we started heading back. He made a beeline back to Indianapolis, and here I am trying to figure out what I'm going to do again. No money, no vehicle. We get into Carson or into Reno, and I just thought, this is the last place I want to be. I want to be without money and whatever. I don't want to be in Nevada. So I asked him to drive me to and drop me off in Des Moines, Iowa. And so he did. We drove to Des Moines, Iowa. He dropped me off at a truck stop at 2 a.m. in Des Moines with my bags, and that's it. I think I had $100 on me. I don't know anybody in Minneapolis, in Iowa, but I just I was burnt out at that point in time. I went and got a hotel room because I just whatever spend the last $100 on that because I'm just tired, and I don't want to be sleeping out on a park bench or something. So So I did. I went and got a hotel room, slept, woke up the next morning, and a number of amazing things happened. One was I got a ride in an Uber car over to Walmart to pick up a couple things, and as I was talking to some of my friends over in Florida, telling the situation, this Uber driver overheard it. And when we got to Walmart, he went in the store, withdrew $200 out of ATM, and brought out and said, "I think you need some more meat. This is the Uber driver. I just paid $12 for a ride. He gave me $200 and said that he thought I needed it." And before the end of that day, we had enough money to buy a motorcycle. $1,800. I was able to buy it, so I did. I bought a motorcycle, and of course I bought it from private party. So, and it was after hours, like 6 o'clock when I picked it up. So obviously there's no motor vehicle tag office that's open. Nor would I be able to get a tag because I'm not from Missouri. But anyway, so I'm driving from Missouri back. I was going down to Tulsa, and I was going to just continue on the bike. I figured they'll just do the last 10,000 miles on a motorcycle. Well, I got about 200 miles into that ride, and I got pulled over by the state patrol in Kansas. He's like, "You got to have it registered." Well, how can I register? I'm from DC. I can't even register it anyway. So I'll register when I get there. That's the whole right to travel situation. He said that he disagrees with that. And not only that, but put my hands behind my back. So he took me into jail. I spent 34 hours in jail, and then they refused to give me any of my stuff back. None of my clothes, none of the laptops, the motorcycle I can't get back. And so now I'm stuck in central Kansas. Well, you guys, this is the way that this went. Right? Every day was another battle. Every day. I was stuck without a car 2 more times, and yet I finished that 40-day term. I finished on time, delivering the 32 state attorney generals exactly in the period of time that I said I was going to do it, on the day that I said it was going to be done. And yet we had all these adversities, these things that I was able to overcome. I mean, even if it's not God, then damn it, look at my tenacity. I mean, because I'm going to do what I say that I'm going to do. And I know that that's a big challenge that a lot of you guys are having right now, is that you don't think that I'm going to do the things that I say that I'm going to do. You guys, I've done everything I've said that I'm going to do, right? You guys give me money, and I'm out spending that money on this every day. This is what I do. Saturday, Sunday, it doesn't matter. And so the point is that I'm doing this for you guys. So if you think that I'm doing this for money, I don't know what to say. I'm not. I had money. I don't care about it now. So if you think I'm doing this for vindication because I want my ex-wife to pay for things that she's done, guys, she committed all kinds of crimes. If I wanted her in prison, she could have been in prison. It's not about her, right? She would have done the things to me that she did if it weren't for what the system did to her to manipulate us. I get that. You guys should all get that. You should understand how the system builds a monster and then gets that monster, everyone to believe that monster. But it's just narrative. It's not true. So if you think I'm doing about vindication, again, I don't know what to say about that, because after 9 years, I've never once gone after her for the crimes she's committed, because you know what? She made me a better man because of what she did. Why would I be mad about that? Right? I love her, and I'm going to continue to love my ex-wife because that's what love does. I'm not going to go after her because I'm happy with who she made me through what she did. And so then the other one is, if you think that I'm doing this to clear my name, guys, I didn't have to do any of this. I mean, I didn't. I didn't have to. When I was in prison, I didn't have to stay through my good time. I stayed an extra 12 months almost. I stayed all the way until the date they kicked me out. I could have been out a year early, but I needed to get as many people as possible on board with this. I didn't do this for myself. I did this for you guys, man. So in Washington State, you got good time, a third off. I didn't take it off. The counselors were walking by my door and they said, "Well, all we need is just an address and we'll let you go," because they didn't like me being there. No, I'm good. I was there for a reason. I stayed there all the way until the date they kicked me out because I needed to get as many of you guys on board as possible. And the only way I could do that was by remaining in the place where you guys were at to get you guys to petition. So, if you guys want to know why I'm doing this because I see a way better future for all of you, right? Because I see a better future for me. And I just know that we as a country can be so much better than we are today. Because I've seen it. God's given me that vision. So I'm doing it for you guys.
I think I'm seeing a final season or series of this movie you've kind of put together. I mean, you've almost, this is like a movie written out. You have a journal of all your experiences over this? Because this is going to, Okay, because this is something that I could see. I don't know who's going to play you, but once this is all over and we're looking back 10, 20 years from now, people are going to be thinking how unbelievable this story is and how you got to where we're at.
It's like there's a philosopher, Peter Parker, and he said that nations seeking to correct gross injustices must be quick and decisive in their action. If they dither, they will fail. And I don't want to give them any option to debate this. Like let's just go for the foundation. Let's go through the whole thing. I know a lot of people would say, "Oh, well, let's just do bits and pieces of it." No, bullshit. Let's just tear the whole damn thing down because that's what. And let's not talk about it. I mean, let's not give any options. Like if it's wrong, then let's just accept it as wrong, and let's do it right. Because again, our founders and forefathers, they failed us, you guys. I mean, George Washington, he was a remarkable man, but he made a huge error because he knew that he was starting a nation that was going to have respect for all men, right? All equality. He knew that. That was what God had given him for his vision. And so, just like the foolish builder in Scripture says, that if you know what God says you got to do and you don't do it, then you're going to build on a flawed foundation. Washington built on a flawed foundation because he knew that he was going to start an egalitarianism form of government, the belief that all men are equal, but then he refused to give up his property. He was the leader of our country. He should have been leading us in that direction, and he didn't do it, right? I mean, yes, Thomas Jefferson was a leader too, but George Washington was the leader, right? He was the one that was elected president. He should have been the first one to say, you know what, I'm going to make them free. I'm going to make them equal because that's what needs to be done. And instead he said, well, you know what, I kind of like them making money for me. And so we did not get a criminal justice system because it's not built upon just principles of all men being equal. Instead, it's built upon the enslavement system because justice is simply a term that was created by slave owners to protect their property. So we have to remove the foundation that was improperly put into place by Washington founders. And if you think about the case that I'm fighting, right? Downing versus Washington, right? I mean, I'm fighting the very spirit of him. Like I'm fighting the slavery of and Washington is a name. So I mean, we're fighting, the foundation of our nation being something that we don't realize what it actually is. And so we built on this flawed foundation, right? We built a house on reclaimed sand in a swamp, and in the slavery institution, and it was built by a foolish builder, Washington. And we need to go back. We need to remove that. We need to bring everybody up to an equal status so that all men can start out equally, like we should have been 245 years ago. And when we do that, then we can remove the business and industry nature of it, and we can actually have a system in place that's there to serve the people, which is what it was meant to be. Equally treating everybody the same without having the ability to discriminate or classify or whatever. But I want to see a restart of the nation because in doing that, I think we can build property. But the way it was built right now, it was not right. So I think that a lot of people are scared of that, and probably rightfully so because of all of the structure that they put into place, all these case law and all these rulings and all this stuff that's legal structure. But you know what? The structure is still built upon the flawed foundation, right? If the foundation is martial court saying that the Constitution doesn't apply to states, which we know is absolutely erroneous in 1833, then everything that's been built up to this point was built upon Marshall saying, the Constitution doesn't apply to states, which, you wonder why it's called martial law. Martial law is the suspension of statutory obligations. And that's exactly what Chief Justice Marshall did with his court in 1833 in Barron v. Baltimore when he said that the Bill of Rights doesn't apply to states. He suspended statutory obligations. We've been operating in a state of martial law ever since 1833. We don't realize because the only way that you can not have the Constitution apply is by suspending statutory obligations. That's what happens with COVID, right? That was the Emergency Response Act, the Emergency Preparedness Act. If you read it, it says that the government or the president can suspend the statutory obligations. Well, what's a statutory obligation? Statute is a law, an obligation created by it. Therefore, the Constitution creates obligations through statute for government to do. So when government doesn't want to obey those, what do? Suspend statutory obligations. And the president can do that. I mean, my question to you guys is do you think our founders and forefathers would have ever created a document that guarantees rights and limits powers, but then the same document permits the very people that abuse the powers to be able to suspend the obligation? I mean, we were supposed to be protected from the government. So why would we think that government can suspend our laws? Why could they ever put us in martial law? Why could they? they can't do those things, because if they could, then the very document that was created to protect us can be circumvented by them at their will. That's not what was created.
You know, my only other argument to this whole thing is that you are breaking down part of the judicial system, and that's one part of the enslavement. There's other parts to this as a whole. I mean, even just the idea of private banks and private money. We've never even existed in our lifetime. We've never experienced where there hasn't been private banks. All the Federal Reserve, all these different organizations are all built within the law system to protect this entire enslavement program. So it's not just this, I'm hoping, is to be the crack in the wall that will expose all the other problems in the foundation, because it's multiple. They've built this as a well-constructed system of enslavement. And
Yeah.
that's the only way I could see it.
So the financial side is just, it's crazy once you actually understand how the financial system works. And you obviously do, but think of it like this, you guys, the Treasury, that's our money. Like every single cent that America makes is the people's money. So the value of America, I own one share of America. So it has a certain value. But when you go to buy a house, you go to a bank and you say, hey, bank, I need the money to buy his house. Do you think that bank has the money? No, they don't, because that money doesn't exist until you ask for it, right? Then they use your social security number. They go to the Treasury account, SQB. They ask for a draw from that, and then the bank receives that. The bank gives it to you as though it's their money, and you say, okay, great, thank you, bank, for giving me this money. But it wasn't their money; it was your money. It was pulled from your account out of the Treasury, and now you're paying the bank interest, right? So the only thing that benefits within this whole financial system we have in place today are the banks, because it's your money that they're loaning to you, making you believe that it's their money, and so you pay interest on it, and then it just goes back into your account. It's nuts. Now, we haven't figured out how to actually use, our accounts in the Treasury. I think that some people say, oh, you do this. There's all kinds of online, courses that you can take. I'm going to wait until we know, because any one of these guys that's not driving around in a Lamborghini hasn't figured out yet. So, so if they say that they have, I don't believe them. But the thing is like if you can't make your house payment, right, you could pay interest only, right? Just the interest only, because that's the only part that the bank could be damaged on, because your principal, right, the money that's actually applied to the loan, that's your money. The bank can't be damaged. So if you're looking at a foreclosure, you got some options, man. You entered into a contract with that bank. Yes, you got to live up to it, but the bank can only be damaged by the interest, because that's the only thing that's bearing to them. So if you make interest payments on a loan, they can never foreclose on you, ever. And that's just something that you guys should be aware of, like everybody. But these financial secrets, they're there because the financial institution is a sham. But this is the thing. It's been a while since I talked about this, but we can get rid of the debt, right? We've got $34 trillion national debt, huge debt, right? That's burdening my children, your children, our children, grandchildren. So $34 trillion in debt. But so to start, so we went into bankruptcy in 1933. That's key. We've never came out of bankruptcy. That's also the reason why we went into admiralty jurisdiction. For those of you who are familiar with the types of jurisdiction, admiralty jurisdiction deals with contracts. Therefore, bankruptcy is part of admiralty jurisdiction. So when America went into bankruptcy in 1933, we shifted into admiralty jurisdiction, and we remain there today because we've never finalized this bankruptcy. Well, so when you go through bankruptcy, the first thing you have to do is you have to create a fiduciary, right? Because my creditors cannot contact me as long as I'm in bankruptcy, then they have to go to my fiduciary. My fiduciary will pay them, right? And that way creditors can't come to me. So in order to put America into bankruptcy, we needed to identify a fiduciary, a Fed, right? And so we created a Fed as the fiduciary, because all the creditors will come to it. China and everyone else can't contact me because they have to go to him. That's the fiduciary, right? And all debt is paid by that fiduciary, right? So when China calls up and says, hey, I need money, Fed pays it out. Now, the thing is that they did that with some deceptive intentions. But in order to set up the Fed, they had to create a law called HJR 192, House Joint Resolution 192. Because in order to have the Fed be the Fed, then they had to have a law that says that all debt, public and private, is to be paid by the Fed system, right? So again, all debt, public and private, is to be paid by the Fed system. That's what HR 192. So they established it. We said everybody has to go to it to get creditors or whatever to get paid. You go to the Fed. So all that public private is be paid by the Fed. Well, that's interesting because the Fed isn't owned by the people. The Fed's owned by some biggest banks in the world. So one of the things that I'm proposing, and maybe people haven't quite heard it quite yet, but why don't we finalize this bankruptcy, guys? I mean, do I need to carry that $34 trillion in debt? I mean, if a bank loans to me when I'm at risk, right? I mean, you know that I'm financially strapped already, right? As a corporation, if you loan to me, that's on you, bank, right? You loan to high risk. Guys, if the corporation isn't serving the consumer, right, which is not, clearly this corporation is not serving us, then there comes a point in time when we got to ask ourselves, is it really solvent? Do we really want to keep fighting for this, or do we want to, cut our losses now? If we cut our losses now, according to HJR 192, all debt, public and private, is to be paid by Treasury. That means that the $34 trillion is not my debt or your debt. It's the seven biggest banks in the world's debt, because we discharged the debt to them. They accepted all debt, public and private. All the debt, national debt that's been put into place is their responsibility, not ours. We can discharge the debt. And the thing is like tomorrow, when we set up another corporation, one that might work better, or whatever you want to call it, whatever. But we're going to have to set up another government. When we do you think China's going to stop doing business with us? No, man. No, especially the banks responsible for paying it. It's not our responsibility. No, they're going to keep doing business with us tomorrow because that's just how it's going to be. We got resources that they need. They got resources we need. So money is it's just a number. It's just a piece of paper. It's nothing. It's owned by the bank. They rent it to us, right? Why don't we just bankrupt the company, make United States of America way, create another corporation called United People of America, because it's the people that make us great, not the states. And let's get rid of that debt. Let's remove these chains, these financial chains that bind us together. We can do that with the law that's already in place. And I'll tell you what, I probably better be a little careful about where I go walking tonight, because the banks might find out that there are some options. And that's one of the things I'm proposing. Like, let's get rid of this debt, man. Let's give that back to the banks. Their responsibility.
Well, I was also thinking that there are no options. This is it. This is all you have. This is the only option that there is. There's no other way to do it. And if there any of these other options are fallacies. And we're playing by the same rules they've given us. Okay, let's finish up this bankruptcy. Let's adjust and get a new corporation up. Let's put a new system in place that actually affects the citizens of that corporation, rather than what they've created today, where their main mission is keeping us in fear, keeping us uneducated, or misinforming. When you do have a little bit of truth, make sure you put enough misinformation in there to keep us ever finding out or getting to the point where we can work together. And they keep us divided amongst ourselves. But that, I love your little, that was a quick little rundown on HJR 192 that most people take so much time to try to explain it. But just that little 5-10 minute segment, if people get their mind around that, and then what you're also doing with the laws and how the common laws are supposed to be into effect, we're taking it back. We're giving the right back to the people. We're giving them.
According to the book of Leviticus, there's two things that are required for a jubilee. One is release all the slaves. Two is discharge all the debt. Those are two things I'm asking for. Release the slaves, discharge the debt. This is a jubilee, guys. I mean, according to scripture, this is a jubilee. And one of the reasons why I feel so strongly about September 6th is because there's one day scripturally every year, there's only one day that the jubilee can occur according to scripture. And it's called the 29th day of Elul. And here in America, we call that Labor Day, right? Which just so happens to be, the following Monday after June 6th, or September 6th. So that is the 29th day of Elul. That's the day that scripturally, according to the Bible, that if you were to have a jubilee, it has to happen on that day. That's the day I got my eyes focused on right now, is because if the two things I'm talking about doing is discharge debt and release slaves, and that's what the Bible says, I mean, that's the day I got my eyes set on. And I'm going to keep my faith on that. I'm going to keep on pushing forward. And I don't care if anybody else shares that faith. My faith is enough to keep me moving. And anyone's absence of faith is not going to be more powerful than my presence of faith. And so
that jubilee is well overdue. I think we were into this situation because we haven't had that in our history, and in our last couple 100 years for sure. I don't know, but before that, but that's something that was supposed to be every 70 years, and that's something.
Well, we never had. There's never been a jubilee in history. Like there's never been a complete release of slaves and complete release of debt, because the spiritual debt, the debt that we owe to each other, that's what we're talking about. Like the national debt is the accumulation of this debt of these prisoners, you guys. That is the national debt. We discharge the debt by saying, you know what? Let's let them go. Let's let them go home to their kids, to their families, and whatever. I mean, we can release the chains that bind us to our financial, slave owners and foreign corporations and everything. We can do that by just simply saying, you know what? You don't know me anymore, guys. You know, my fellow man doesn't know me shit. And doing that, I mean, think about it. Like every single American, it doesn't matter whether you're a politician or whether you're a garbage man. Every American would agree with things I'm saying. Like if they could get out of $400,000 in debt that their kids are going to have, or whatever portion is theirs, with regard to the $34 trillion in national debt to be had, if we can release that by simply saying, you know what, let's give that back to the banks, because they put us into this situation, right? They made way more than $34 trillion over the years, breaking us and stealing from our treasury, right? The interest only, like the taxes we paid, that pays only interest. So they made way more money than the $34 trillion that they will have to pay back, right? But we could do that. We could discharge the debt. We could start over, and we could find ourselves in a completely different society, where we could go actually from a monetary-based system into a resource-based system, where government's looking at things from a much less commercialized perspective, and corporations are making decisions that are in the best interest of long-term consumer use, as opposed to short-term consumer repurchase. So there's a whole bunch of different things that could open up, that people have been talking about seeing America go toward, but could never conceivably, figure out a path to get us there. I mean, there's some great movies out there that I think it's called the Zeitgeist, and they talk about just that, moving to a resource-based economy. They're like, oh, it'll never happen. I mean, it's a great idea, but what could happen? I mean, if we start over and got rid of the national debt, yeah, we could go any direction we want to go. Especially now we know, the direction we don't want to go. We could change and go a completely different way, guys.
Well, it seems like we could go that way without giving us freedom too, where they could create a problem, a crisis within the debt markets. Then also having this chaos, they can go, okay, now we're going to do a resource-backed currency, but never giving us this debt jubilee, never giving the people their freedoms or their rights back. We can go two different directions. So there is a fight for us. There is this, we have to educate ourselves, the people that are around us, and get this information out to as many as we can, because the powers that be, they're not going to walk away. I mean, I think it's such a small amount of people that we're dealing with. There's a tipping point, and I think we're actually getting really close to that, if we're not even past it, where we need to be responsible to ourselves and our future by taking on both of those: the debt jubilee, and then the debt jubilee and the lock. Got some flying chasing me. The debt jubilee, and then being able to actually have our rights given back to us, and having a justice system that works for all.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's breaking down the foundation, because what's interesting is that the case that I'm talking about with Marshall Court, the Barron versus Baltimore, if you understood the history of it, they're even intertwined, because Barron versus Baltimore, 1833, the Marshall Court made the decision that the Bill of Rights, which is the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, they are not a restriction against the state governments. They're only a restriction against federal governments. And so as of that moment, all of those rights that you believe that you have, the freedom of speech, the freedom of religion, freedom of press, the right to grand jury, all of those things that's written in the Bill of Rights, you didn't get them anywhere. Nobody got them. The only place you got them was 10 square miles, Washington, D.C., because that's the only place that is federal government, right? Which is why politicians can fly to Washington, D.C., break the laws, and get away with it, because the Constitution applies to them there, but it doesn't apply to anyone else. That's the reason why this whole grand jury issue is at a head here, and that the states say we don't have to do it, is because that goes back to Barron versus Baltimore from 1833. But what you got to understand is that Chief Justice Marshall, he was what was known as a Federalist, right? And a Federalist, from a political perspective, was one who believed in a strong central government. So why would a Federalist who believes in a strong central government put a ruling into place that says, oh no, states, you don't have to follow the central government? It doesn't even make sense politically. But so then you got to look at what was going on. See, Barron versus Baltimore, the ruling came out 6 months later. They put into place the First National Bank, which was the one that Andrew Jackson took down. But they put in place the First National Bank. Well, here's the thing, right? Here's the truth that nobody really knows much about, is that the reason why Marshall made that decision was because he needed to pave the way for that national bank to be put in place. Because they all knew, all the central government knew that the people were going to sue, the states were going to sue the moment that they put that mechanism in place, because we knew that the greatest way to enslave people was through financial debt. And so the people didn't want it. The states didn't want it. They were going to sue and make it go away. And so to have standing in federal court, or to be able to sue the United States if they put the central bank into place, in order to have standing, you have to, one, be directly impacted by the law in question, and two, you have to be a person or represent people. And so if Barron versus Baltimore said, oh, the Bill of Rights Constitution doesn't apply to you states, then guess what? 6 months later, central bank set up and established, and now the states don't have standing to sue because the Constitution doesn't apply to them. But that same ruling has kind of lingered in a number of other areas, like with Dred Scott versus Sanford, where it says that blacks are not people. It's the same concept of eliminating the standing for people, so they can't take action, so they can't get recourse in the court system. That's what Dred Scott versus Sanford was with the slave in 1857, was a precursor to Civil War. I mean, that was a case where the Supreme Court, they didn't want to make a ruling because they knew that if they did, they were going to have to side with the slave, Dred Scott, and they were going to have to set him free, because he wasn't in a free land. His master took him from a slave state to a free state, and now he's in a free state. He's like, well, I'm suing for my freedom. But they didn't want to make that ruling because they were afraid it was going to open up the floodgates for all the slaves to be set free. And so they had to figure out some way to eliminate standing on that one too. So they said, oh, well, blacks aren't people. And if you're not a person, that means you can't sue in federal court. So you have to be a person to sue. So the courts had this long history of these deceptive intentions, these rulings that they put into place that are not, they're not good, but yet that's the foundation. That's where all of our current case law, or what we're relying upon, drives from. It drives from Marshall saying, well, Bill of Rights doesn't apply, or Taney saying, blacks aren't people, or Waite saying, oh, the central government can't protect your rights when the state violates them. These are our foundation. These are the honorable men that we have to look up to at the Supreme Court and say are honorable. I mean, I don't think the foundation is all that honorable, but yeah. So, yeah.
You educated yourself on all this while you were working the regular corporate job, or this is after that shift?
Honestly, I got the bulk of it. I got the bulk of it because of the time that I spent learning within prison and jail. I already had the master's at that point in time. I already had the foundation, but I probably read 50 books just about Civil War there, because I was breaking down, because there was so much that was going on with Civil War at that time. But it just seemed like every book that I picked up was specifically, there was going to be some little piece of the puzzle within it. And so, I read pretty much every memoir of every one of the presidents. And so I just had a good training regimen from God. And it came together. I mean, there's some very strange things that a lot of people don't even know about, that suddenly I was able to learn about from the things I was picking up. So yeah.
Well, with that equation, I got a question then. You a little Civil War.
Yeah.
What is it to the idea that Lincoln didn't want to address slavery at all, and it was more of a tax and a bank issue during that, and that's what created most of the Civil War, nothing to do with.
Well, yeah, I mean, so here in America, the primary constitutional principle is that government cannot interfere with private property, and so as long as we say that a person can be property, then we can commercialize the slavery institution, and so during that period of time, prior to Lincoln at least, whether or not Lincoln believed in it, it was well known that slaves were property, and he felt quite strongly that because they were property, that the government could not interfere with them. And so, but property is all commercial. So when you say commercial, yeah, the answer is it's all about a business, right? When I say that justice is a term that's created by slave owners to preserve and protect property, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's a business. They created the criminal justice business, right? It's this industry. It's the Fugitive Slave Act to protect the property. Property goes running away, go get that property, bring it back. But you see, what has happened is that the slaves themselves is no longer just one race or another, right? And the slave owner is not a private business, right? It's a public entity, right? Because if the 13th Amendment made prisoner and slave synonymous with one another, right? They mean the same thing. A prisoner is a slave, and a slave is a prisoner, just like the Fugitive Slave Act. Fugitive is a slave is a fugitive. So if 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 a prisoner is a slave, who's the slave owner? State. The state's the slave owner. So if the state's a slave owner, and yet the state is immune, right? Immune from violating your enslavement rights, right? Your civil rights, but they're immune, then you can't sue in court for your freedom. That derives from Dred Scott versus Sanford from 1857. I mean, if Dred Scott can't go and sue for his freedom in federal court because the slave master is immune, we've got the same shit today, right? So think about it like this, right? So we say that corporations are considered person, right? I think that everybody talks about that. Like the Supreme Court in a case called Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad, they said that corporations are persons, that they're granted personhood. Well, that's not a good thing, guys. That's a terrible thing, right? The reason why they made that particular decision in the late 1800s, this was a Waite court decision, and Waite is well known to be a science experiment at best. But so when you have the 13th Amendment, right? 13th Amendment said that slaves were prisoners and prisoners were slaves, synonymous. So it transferred slave ownership from the private institution into a public institution. It made the states the slave owner. Well, in order to protect the slaves from being able to get out, in order to preserve the industry, right? They had to protect the slave owner. But if the slave owner is the state and the state is a corporation can't own property. So there's no protection of the private property if the state was the owner of the slaves. So then Santa Clara County where Southern Pacific Railroad comes along. Well, before oral arguments were heard, Chief Justice Waite makes a statement that he makes a statement on record. He says, "We are all under the opinion that this corporation is protected by the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment." Well, the problem is that the 14th Amendment protects rights. People have rights. Government has powers. So the moment that he said that this corporation is protected by the right of equal protection, all of a sudden corporations were granted personhoods because only persons can be given rights. And now this corporation has got a right to be protected. Thus was born personhood of corporations. Now, that wasn't put in place so that this Santa Clara County would be protected under civil rights. It was put in place because what is a state? It's nothing but a corporation. So by saying Santa Clara County is granted personhood because it's protected by the 14th Amendment's rights, all of a sudden that's when states' rights came into play. See, states don't have rights. The whole concept and argument of states' rights is simply a code word for discrimination. Because when a state has the right to treat their citizens differently than another state, then that breaks down the union, right? It creates conflict. And so states don't have rights. People have rights. States have power. But then when you grant personhood onto a corporation, you automatically granted personhood onto a corporation, and thus the state became a person, and now they have rights to preserve and protect their property. So Waite was simply trying to preserve this industry and do it by these deceptive rulings that he put into place over the course of 20 or 30 years. Horrible rulings that we're dealing with today that were all intended to undermine the Reconstruction Amendments. Anything we were trying to do to remove the slavery institution as people, he went around all of those that were stated on the floor of Congress. The 14th Amendment purpose, when it was introduced by Congressman Bingham or Senator Howard, he went around, he didn't even consider what was being stated as far as the purpose of the law. And he went back in and just pulled back the old slavery principles and put into place a number of additional rulings that have led to another 180 years of us continuing to be ignorant of the true basis of this institution being slavery, the enslavement of men.
That's wild. That's wild because it shows how every one of these moves are done in a way to either increase or to strengthen the enslavement system that is already existent or needs to be adjusted for what's coming in the future. This is a well thought out plan. I give credit where credit's due. They knew what they were doing to create. And then one of the reasons why I asked it about the Civil War is because I still go by the statement that almost all wars are banker wars, and there is the Civil War is one of those people who go, oh, the Civil War is about civil rights, and the more I understood and I did my research, I just had a different feeling or different understanding of what they were really trying to accomplish and then the laws that were passed right afterwards or beforehand. And it made more sense that they were still trying to create a more of an enslavement system. And it was just, it looked good on paper. It looked good in newspaper articles, but
Yeah.
that was it.
The people don't want slavery. I guarantee that the normal man, the normal people out here, they're against slavery, but the corporations are not. The politicians are not. That they love this institution because this institution is the bread and butter of how they generate revenue. You know, you don't go to Washington D.C. to become a sacrifice or a servant to the people. You go there to become a multimillionaire, right? How can you go to Washington, D.C. at a salary of $192,000 a year and then leave with $280 million? Doesn't make sense. Like, what kind of sacrifice is that, right? I mean, you don't go to D.C. to sacrifice. You go there to make money because this is where this industry is all traded. I mean, you know, it's all involved and it's all part of it. But the enslavement, yeah, it goes beyond just simply the prisoner sitting in prison because, you know, yeah, I mean, there's lots and lots of different levels of the enslavement, and I think that as we continue to break up the familial unit, we're just going to see it at a greater accelerated rate. And I don't know. I had a conversation just a couple of days ago with one of the leaders of the Republican Party out of a couple of states, and we were all, there were a couple people on the call, we were all under the agreement that we're not going to make it another 4 years. Like there's something has to happen. We don't know what's going to happen, but something has to happen. We all feel this urgency toward that. And although they may not like what I'm proposing, there's not a whole lot of other options out there. Like, we got to do something because we're at a great deal of risk right now as a nation. Like we're internally, we're breaking apart, but you know, we haven't had domestic policy in so long because we go out foreign and we say, oh, set all these nations free. But what we practice here at home is in conflict with what we go and preach overseas. And they see the hypocrisy in that. You see, before we can go out there and start dealing with Iraq or you know, some other nation, we got to first deal with our own people and whether or not what we practice here at home is consistent with what we're going to preach overseas. Because if our domestic policy is in conflict with our foreign policy, then it will not be effective. Nobody will listen to us. They'll all see the hypocrisy in it. So, you know, I think that when we have these corporations that are driving both sides in order to generate revenue, you know, they're the ones that want the conflict, just like in our own family, they want the conflict, you know? And so, yeah, I think that most of these wars that we've had in the past, I think that they've been hidden with a different purpose, when in all reality the foundation is about revenue, it's about generating income every time. Yeah.
Well, you know, you brought up the time period we have right now. It looks like, especially with immigration the way it is in other countries, not just in the United States, that they're trying to replace nations. They're trying to replace us with a new, educated in their format, in their way of system thinking. And
Yeah.
we're kind of slow to the game. This is a well-organized system that's been going on for a while. It's been organized. It has efforts. I mean, they call it like more of like an octopus here, where they've got their finger and hand in almost every country. And seeing what's going on in Ireland and Europe right now, it should be a wake-up call to everybody. You know, they are not trying to get rid of this enslavement system. The only way it's going to happen is if we get involved, we start helping out each other and understanding that this is our responsibility for this change.
Yeah.
Not coming outside from us. We're not waiting for somebody else to do it. Don't ask for a politician to come in and save us. Yeah, there might be better ones than some of the crappy ones we have. That's not what's going to help us.
Yeah.
That's the change.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that if we continue to permit the narrative come from outside sources, you know, and all of our information comes from them, I think that we're just going to continue down this path of conflict, you know. But what makes America great is our ability to be able to communicate. And again, I think that the more we can come together and communicate, the better off we're going to be in coming up with our solutions. So when government tells us to break apart and to distance ourselves, we need to decide that no, that's not really what's in our best interest. But there's there's a number of different things that's happening at an individual level that's also happening at the collective level. And I think that when you start to see and compare those two things, I think that it becomes a little bit shocking, because in order for society to accept, the individual experience, they have to experience it themselves. So, if we want to say that that plea bargains and imprisonment is wrong, then somehow we have to get the collective to experience it themselves, so that they say, "Oh yeah, I understand now. I understand why it needs to be done." And the thing is, and this is what I brought up, is that voting, right? Every single day there is individual voting at an individual level that occurs in every single city across the country. It's called a jury, right? A jury is simply a vote, right? Just like at the collective level, everybody goes to vote. What happens when government gets involved and actually prevents one side of the story from being told, right? And it takes interest in one candidate over another, right? So if that can happen at a collective level, because if it happens every day at an individual level, because I'm telling you, 98% of all convictions come by way of plea bargain. That's 98% of all convictions that are defendants that don't even get to tell their side of the story. So you do not have the right to individual vote, or not having government get involved in the process and select one party to prevail over another. If we can't experience that right at an individual level, then why would we expect to see it at a collective level, right? Wouldn't we expect to see government involved in the voting process at the collective level as well? So when you look at what's going on in your life, you can see that it's going to manifest up to the higher level. For my argument to the state of Washington, do I not have the right to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States when the state of Washington chooses to abridge their obligations to obey it? Absolutely, I do, 100%. Well, what about a collective level? Does Texas have the right to stand up and defend the Constitution when a government agency refuses to recognize and enforce the Constitution of the United States? Absolutely, Texas does. Yeah. So individual level to collective level, we can see these things happening. So all of these things are all occurring within our life. That's also happening out here. So that I think that here very, very soon, society is going to be able to understand a lot of the challenges that the individuals are going through because of the last few years that we've had to experience things. But the issues are the same issues, from the individual to the collective, and we're experiencing them at a mass scale right now. I think that the election fraud issue is probably, we're still going to know. It still has to come out, but I feel pretty strongly that understanding what's going on at the individual level, if that scenario or if that philosophy is true, we're going to have some pretty major news coming as far as election fraud responsibility.
Yeah, just hearing some of the CIA agents I've talked to and how much they've been able to control elections for generations in other countries. I mean, this is not something new. This is something they've mastered. This is something they've been able to control at even a higher level.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to this information coming out, and I'm almost kind of hoping that we get to this. I'm sure you heard like the 100th monkey effect, where we don't have to tell everybody. We just got to get to a certain mass point, and then we get it.
2%. Yep. 2% of the voting population. I mean, I'm looking for 2 million people. If I get 2 million people back behind this, and there's 2.9 million prisoners, if I can just get the prisoners behind this, that's a whole voting pool that didn't exist before.
Yep.
We got 3. So, and if we're going to break the system, we got to get rid of the two-party system. We got to get rid of the two-party system. And no one would ever think that could happen. Like no one, because they have too much money. How could an independent ever come in and have victory? I don't know, but that's kind of what needs to happen. I mean, yeah. The problem with the two-party system is that it creates the pendulum effect as well. So we became a democracy not because we started talking about democracy. We became a democracy because democracy comes from two-party system, and so what happens with a democracy is that the mob is, and the majority is on one side one year, is on the other side another year. And so this side says, oh, we're all about conservatism. This side says, oh, we're all about liberalism. And so as the cycles keep going back and forth, they keep on taking away the middle ground until there's nobody left to communicate there. And then the tyrant over here says, we're just going to do whatever we want to do and screw all you, right? And then you have the other side that will rebel, stand up, and then you have complete destruction of the country. Every single democracy in the history of the world has been destroyed at the hands of people because of the tyrannical government. So when we have a Republican form of government, a representative government that would be represented by all of the regional governments, they come together and they'd make decisions that are in best interest of the society as a whole, based upon the input from all the regions. You don't get that. You don't get that with a democracy or a two-party system, because when you have the Speaker of the House coming from California or New York or one of these big areas, you do what they want, and the rest of the party does what they want. So they say, well, if you don't do what I want done, then you won't get the money for your election cycle, whatever. So we wind up having one group, usually from California or one of these large areas, being the ones that makes a decision as far as what everybody's going to do. And so then North Carolina says, well, I'm not being heard. And Tennessee says, I'm not being heard, because the only one that's being heard and the only thing that's getting any new money is California, and the bridge to nowhere. So we still have a democracy, but we have a democracy because of this two-party system, and we got to get away from that. And so, yeah.
Oh, with on that too, is that I tell people, because I've had that conversation, that we could break up the two-party system, and people go like, well, it's been here forever. It actually hasn't. We used to be the Federalist and the Democratic Republicans. That was it. You had the Democrat Republicans, which then the Federalists had so many problems that they had to disband that group, and then they just broke up the Democrats and the Republicans.
Yeah.
But we're supposed to have a balanced system between the two. A Republican has supposed to have a limited democracy where you can have individual rights that are supposed to be given. But once again, like I said, we had this conversation in our last talk, is that an uneducated republic, or an uneducated democratic republic, is another form of slavery. And many people have written that throughout the time. Even in the Roman times, they would talk about an uneducated mass public eventually becomes lack of rights, because if you do not know, they will walk.
Yeah, all of the ancient philosophers, Socrates, Aristotle, Plato, they all wrote about the destruction of a nation comes from democracy. Like they were, and guys, like, this isn't about political parties, this is about democratic. But I'm telling you, if you read any of Socrates or Aristotle's writings, they will all say that the destruction of a nation comes by way of a democracy. Tyranny comes by way of democracy, because democracy is mob rule. It's whatever the majority wants, and then they impose their will upon everyone else, and that winds up being sometimes a very, very brutal thing. I mean, think about even how divisive we as a nation are, where you got Republicans and Democrats that are they're ready to just kill each other. I mean, that's where you go, and complete breakdown and destruction of the nation, because there's just so much divisiveness. Our leaders, our president in particular, represents the people. We shouldn't have him up there bad mouthing half of America. We should be in a position where we're trying to bring them back together. And so I hope that we see Trump and some of them change, their narrative on their opposition, because attacking them is attacking half of America, and that's just making us more divisive.
Keeping us in the same system. It's literally duplicating the past. We're not changing anything. We're staying in it. We're selling a bill of goods. We're selling it like we are the change, but we're not. We're just continuing on what's already been created. And if we keep getting what we've gotten, then hey, we'll keep playing the system. But that's why we're having this conversation. I've seen enough. I've read too many books. I've heard too many horror stories from people that have tried at the end of their life going, it didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
This system that's in place, these retired judges that I've had in private conversations in their private chambers, this didn't work. They felt like they wasted their life spending this time trying to create what they thought was a judicial system that would bring fairness, and it was taking care of one side or the other. Not
yeah.
Okay, that's why I love your fight. And one of the other things that I wanted to make sure we spent a little bit of time on was actually still on other ways to get to you, to watch your journey, and other ways that people can send funds to you. I know you have a certain way we do this, but would you go over a few of those things? How do we keep in touch with you? How do we watch your journey, and and how do we help keep you funded?
So again, I served 10 states 2 weeks ago. This last week I served 6. So we started in Jefferson City, Missouri, and then we continued up and around. We did Springfield, Illinois. We did Indianapolis, Indiana, Columbus, Ohio, Lansing, Michigan, Madison, Wisconsin, Minneapolis, and I say we, it's me. I did all this driving myself. Minneapolis, Minnesota, Des Moines, Iowa, Lincoln, Nebraska, and Topeka, Kansas. That was the first 10 loop that I did that first week. And I have the video, but I've only actually uploaded 3 of those particular sites. I was hoping to get them all done today while I'm in this hotel with the internet. But driving in the car is difficult. And so I haven't had the opportunity to do it, but I have all the video of all the sites, and I will get it uploaded. So you'll see. And some of these statements that were made are great. Like, like the lady in Wyoming, she's like, oh, well, the justices, they can't make a decision, unless you ask them a question and petition. I'm like, I'm not asking them to make a decision. I'm telling them that they have a responsibility to control their agents, right? If their agents are breaking law, they have, that's the decision I want. Tell them obey the law. To shut her up, shut her up because yeah, you're right. Unless I pose a question, they're not going to answer. But I'm not posing a question. I'm saying your agents are breaking law. Direct them to obey the law. But there were other responses from some of them. So I think in Nebraska, I don't remember exactly what was said, but make sure to watch those, especially when I did the service and what was said from them, because I didn't lose any one of them. Oh, it was in Nebraska. The lady started butting on me. I'm like, no, let me finish before you say anything, because this is very important what I'm saying here. And so, this is a lot different than the attorney generals. The attorney generals were really difficult. We couldn't get in their office. Like, we didn't have access to them. I had to wait in elevators for them to come out to the parking garage. It was tough. The clerk's office is open, during working hours. They're available. I walk in and here you go. So this service is really, really easy. And they're not even acting like they don't understand. They're just like, okay, well, we're going to give this to them, which is what they're supposed to do anyway. So this is a whole lot easier than it was before. The last one was tough. This one I can do 2 or 3 a day, certainly when it gets into the Northeast to pick up. So we're doing 32 sites or 32 states for sure. We've already picked up a couple states that I wasn't planning on doing, like Illinois. We got it anyway because we were passing through it. So I had an affidavit, we picked up and got it. So the whole point is that the 32 number is very specific. The reason why is because to have a constitutional convention, you need 2/3 of the states, right? So if I serve 2/3 of the states and I can show that the public officials, the judges and prosecutors, attorneys, all the leadership in those states are not enforcing law and obeying law, I believe that we can get the public to say, well, let's have a constitutional convention. We've already got, the 32 states identified and served. So to bring those people together, bypass the legislature and all of the public officials or all of the politicians, so that the people can reestablish their government, is what I was going toward. I don't know exactly how it works, but we'll figure it out when we get there. I just know 2/3 we need to have that number. So that's the number. All right. And so when you add 23 states plus Washington, that was already, that's 33, that is 2/3 of the states. So there's a reason behind it, and it has to do with ultimately going to a conventional Congress where the people decide what they want to do and take out politicians so that they're not involved in the process. That's the whole point of the Constitutional Convention. And honestly, what I want is let's start over. Let's renegotiate the terms of the original contract. Whatever the hell they built on top of it, that was not valid, because we didn't accept those terms. So anyway, so I think I've done 17 states. We've still got the rest to go. On weekends, I'm stuck. Like right now, there's no place I can go. So we only got Monday through Friday, and these Western states were long trips in between. There's 12-hour drives in between a couple of weeks. So when we get down to the South, hopefully next week, it'll go a lot quicker. And then when we get in the Northeast, I think we're going to be doing 3 states a day. We'll make it to DC by September 6th, as long as I get the money to do it. And it's all about gas. So again, every cent that I get, you guys, goes to this. Every day I wake up and figure out how I can make this happen. I'm not living a life of luxury, because I accept the fact that you guys aren't either. So if I can get $1 from every prisoner, we have so much money that we wouldn't know what to do with, right? I'm operating on $100 being a huge day. But if we got 1,000 prisoners to come together and say, you know what, I'll give up 1 ramen pack. That would be enough to get me the rest of the way. So we have Cash App, we have Venmo, we have Chime, we have PayPal. Those ones we use because I can't have an address. Right? I can't have. So if I open a bank account, I got to have an address, right? I open a Zelle account, I have to have an address. GoFundMe, an address. Those ones I don't have to have an address, and I don't have to have a card shipped to me because I can use it on the phone. So that's why I use those things. It's not because I'm wishy-washy, whatever. No, it's because I have to, because I can't have an address to have them send something to, because that would establish a contract with the state. So we have those. They're all exactly the same. We shall be free. WESHALLBEFREE. We shall be free. And again, I'm doing this on my own. Part of the doing it on my own right now is the fact that I feel really strongly that I'm in a little bit of a dangerous situation where I do know that there are people that are looking for me, law enforcement agencies that are looking for me, and I can protect myself, but I can't protect someone else, next to me, and so it's just a lot better for me to be able to walk away or to go into a crowd and be able to be protected, and not have to be worried about someone else's life. So I'm not doing this on my own, and it sucks. I've driven 7,000 miles in the last 2 weeks, but I do this for you guys, man. I want to see this happen, and I want you guys to believe in it, because I do believe in it. This is a matter of just simply enforcing our laws. That's it. That's all I'm asking. Our laws say we'll do something. Let's do it. I mean, I don't think that I still, in my mind right now, I'm trying to rationalize, why am I still arguing about this? Like, why is there still a fight? I mean, why am I still having to struggle with this? Because the government hasn't just accepted the fact that, yeah, we're wrong, let's do it right. Because when we go to these guys, when I go to one of these Supreme Courts and I deliver this affidavit, what they should do is they should say, oh, it is being done wrong, stop operations and correct it immediately. But when they continue to do business as normal after being shown that what they're doing is wrong, you guys, that is a knowledgeable, willful violation of law at that point in time. There's no more ignorance at that point in time. And that's what's really pissing me off about this, is that these public officials, we want to talk about this good judge or this good law enforcement officer, this good, you're either good or you're not good. You either obey the law or you don't. But if you know that something's wrong, and you know that these guys over here doing it wrong, and you don't stand up against them, you're a part of them, right? So, when I show government that what they're doing is wrong and unlawful, and they continue to do it, business is normal. I mean, I don't even know what to say on that, because did they know all along? Is the question I have. But when you willfully and knowingly commit a crime after being shown that that's what you're doing, that's what America needs to understand. Like, these judges, these people, even when you show them that they're acting criminally, they continue to do it, and then they do it with more defiance, more force. I had a guy today, tell me, like, these judges are stepping out. They're being even more aggressive, right? Oh, you shut up, or you got to go through this attorney. I mean, they're being so much more aggressive, because all they have left to rule by is force at this point in time, because the fraud's been revealed, and they're trying to prevent the rest of the public to see the truth of what they are. Like, I thought going into this that I would encounter good politicians, that they would step over here and they'd say, yeah, I'm doing it wrong, let's start doing it right. I have yet to see one, you guys. Not one. And I've met a lot of them. I've served a lot of them, and I have yet to meet a single one who came over to this side and said, yeah, we're going to do it right.
And that's why it's a groundwork effort for you. We need to get this information to more people. The politicians aren't going to make the change. The bankers aren't going to make the change. None of the system, anybody who benefits from the system in any sort of manner are going to be very limited on any sort of change that they want to affect. So the people that need the change is us, and the prisoners, and the children, and the families that have been abused by the system. We need to get more engaged. And for us to watch you on this journey, where are we watching you? What social media do you have? What avenues people have to keep in contact with you?
Yeah. So I've got all the main ones. I'm active on Facebook and active on TikTok. Those are the most active that I am. I will go and I'll speak to anybody. I mean, it doesn't matter who the audience is. It doesn't matter, 100 subscribers or 20s. I will talk to anyone. I'll go anywhere. Because this is about getting this information out. It's about meeting as many people as possible, giving them the information I have. But one of the things that needs to happen is that, you guys, like, we don't need to be fighting with each other. When I have these other advocacy groups like Dave Jose that's out talking a bunch of trash about me, at the end of the day, don't we want the same thing? What good is that going to do? Like, I'm sorry that you feel threatened by what I'm doing, but what I'm doing is going to help you too. What you're doing is going to help me. I mean, why would we waste any time, tearing each other down, when we could be working together and building each other up? That is going to slow down the progression. This isn't about anyone being in lead, right? This is simply about advancing what's in the best interest of people. If you're concerned about what's in the best interest of people, then you should feel that there's a great urgency right now, right? I mean, I have parents call me every day crying, saying they're not going to make it through another day. they think that they're going to kill themselves. Like, I can't handle this anymore. These people need help. And I mean, there is a major urgency right now. And
I'm
we
with
got
you
to
because
do.
your enemy's enemy is going to be your friend. And or I mean, mind you, I do think there's a possibility of having agents within the groups, you know, to create chaos in what you're doing, especially if they see something that's productive or dangerous to what they're doing. There's no reason why they ain't going to try to inspire some other people to try to create some problems for you along the way. But one of the things that I definitely found was that the tens of thousands of views that we got and the thousands of people reposting our videos, the comments from people and the personal
Yeah,
messages I got were in the hundreds, if not thousands, of people with their family members in jail with no recourse. Please help.
yeah,
And it's heartbreaking to go through. And I'm not even seeing the capacity of what you're at. This is just me having our conversations and trying to share your information. They're reaching out to me to get to you or to help have anything that I can do to help them. And there's
yeah,
so many people that are
yeah.
just that they have no hope. We go back to that hope thing. They're hopeless.
And that's exactly it. I get hundreds of those a day, thousands of those a day. They need help. Nobody's helping them, right? So when people say to me, or they talk about attorneys, right? Yeah, go spend your time with the attorney, right? Don't do that, right? You're gonna pay them, but I don't care about the money. I'm asking for money because I have to pay expenses. I have to pay for gas. I don't have any choice there. I'm not asking for a day. Don't put a cent into my bank account, but put a tank of fuel in my gas in the car, right? That we're renting because I can't own it, right? I mean, you know, I'm not asking for anything for myself. I'm asking for this to advance the cause, to advance what I'm trying to do. I may not be successful, but damn it, I'm going to keep on trying, and eventually you will be successful, right? I'm going to keep on pushing because I know the angle. I just got to dial it in right, and this may be it. I don't know. I mean, I'm not gonna give another day, but but yeah, you got to understand these people are hurting. I mean, they're being taken advantage of. Why? Because they're poor. They're poor. Nobody is going to help the poor. They're just going to enslave them, right? So you got these parents that they don't have money to take care of the kids. They lose their kids. The kids are gone because you don't have a right to children if you're a slave or if you're poor, right? And so then we got these prisoners that are going off. I mean, they're poor. That's the reason why. I mean, the parents they have to sell off their their um um their wheelchair, their electric wheelchair in order to pay for an attorney fee. I mean, it's nuts what is happening out here. I mean, the system and the people that are there, they demand money, right? But there comes a point in time when, once again, what good is your money going to be if we don't have a system of government anymore? If we don't have a society, a nation anymore? So I don't do this for money, right? And that's also the reason why I will not take on anyone's contract. You guys keep on asking me to take on your individual case. I won't do it because I fight best from everybody. I can win one case on behalf of everybody. I'm not going to win a million cases off of it. And I'm not interested in $10,000 retainer here, or not interested in that. No, I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you, but I'm going to help you by helping everybody. And so that's what I'm focused on. So if you guys are offended that I'm not taking on or interested in your case, it's because none of that matters. What matters is the one thread that's collectively sewn through every one of the cases, and that's what I'm focused on, and that's what I'm going to win. And if you guys put your money onto that, right? I mean, you guys keep 90% of the money that you're paying on an appeal. Send me 10% of it, right? I mean, I think that personally that this is a much greater possibility than a gamble with an appeal. Because at least the law says what it says, and I put my faith in the law.
With that, and I'm going to put this out there for everybody who's watching any of our past videos, who's watching this video. If what Tanawah was talking about, what Tanawah was saying, and what his mission is resonating you with at all, if it feels like this is where it's supposed to be, a few dollars, some gas money, some food, there couldn't be a better investment in my mind of your time if this is your mission. So if you've sent me a comment about a family member who's dealing with these issues and you know he's not going to be able to get to them at an individual level, if we could do this on a mass scale and if we all put a little bit of money to help him out, especially this last part of the journey, I think beyond a shadow of a doubt, it's probably the best money you could put into us as a whole, as humanity goes, as trying to find a higher level of freedom for us all and for our future. So it's at We Shall Be Free. Any of those, I said, I'll put links to different places you can donate to get to Tanawah. And then also, please keep reposting this information. Please keep sharing this information. That's the other biggest side of this battle is we need to educate people. And what he's doing is he can only talk to so many people, but we have social media as a tool that can be used for us or against us. And when we share and we repost this information, we're doing it for us. And so this is a beautiful time. I think we're at a tipping point like we've never seen before. I think this is the most beautiful time to be alive. And with what we're doing as a group, as a whole, I'm excited about the future. There's part of me that feels intimidated sometimes, but overall, I think we're in it's a beautiful place to be.
So power is a product of action, guys. You have to do something for real power. And so, you know, just like Teddy Roosevelt said in his speech in Paris, I mean, it's not the critic and cynic that counts, right? It's the man that's in the arena that's marred with dust and sweat and blood that's actually trying to do something. He's going to fail, and everybody's going to laugh at him for failing, but he's going to get up and he's going to try again. He's good because he's in the arena, and that's the one that's doing it, right? I'm in the arena. When you rob a man of all he has, you bait a man with nothing to lose, right? They've taken everything from me, and they put me in a place where, you know what? What do I have? I mean, honestly, like you're gonna send me to a better place? Okay, good. I mean, what they can't hurt me anymore, right? They've taken my kids, they've taken my wife, right? I've lost my career, but they didn't take my integrity or my character, right? That I still got, and that they'll never take. So, you know, now that I believe in God, I have the ability to accomplish things I wouldn't otherwise, because what do I have to be afraid of? So they kill me, awesome. That's still part of the plan, because ultimately it's all going to happen anyway, with or without me. You know, it's still going to be accomplished. So I can go out and I can do things that other people wouldn't do, because I don't have to be afraid to do them, right? I can walk, and I'm about to turn and go back across this country, knowing that the FBI is looking for me, knowing that there's 3 state agencies looking for me, and I'm going to walk right through them, you guys, because that's what my faith tells me I'm going to do. Yeah, they're looking for me. So what? God's got me covered. Guys, I've been in and out of state houses or to Supreme Courts serving while the FBI is looking for me. And I'm sure that they're going to watch this show and be like, that's stupid. Why didn't you think about that? I don't know. Why didn't you think about that, guys? I mean, I'm going to be at 19 more, you know, but this is the thing, right? I didn't do anything wrong. I haven't done anything illegal, right? The things that are being claimed, you know, maybe they're accurate, maybe not. I don't know. But if I want to get the FBI to finally listen to what I got to say, and they won't do it any other way, then why not have an investigation on me, right? So I'm not concerned about it because I haven't done anything wrong. But FBI, I want them to come and read my stuff. I want them to listen to what I got to say, because when they do, they'll be like, this guy actually is correct, right? And if that's the only way that I can get them to do it is by permitting, you know, them to think that I'm a criminal, great. But I'm gonna turn it around. I'm gonna continue doing what I'm doing. So we're not gonna stop. I'm gonna get these served, and we're gonna make this happen when we're gonna. So
I want to make sure that we get another update on another conversation with you as these things progress. So if it's okay with you, you let us know if we're ready to do this again, because I know that the people want to know where you're at, and before we have any Supreme Court conversations, we love to get an update from you on how we're at, where we're going.
Okay, yeah, we can have it. Yeah. So I've driven about 7,000 miles last two weeks. It's been horrible. I've got probably 12,000 more to go over the next 3 weeks, and that's a lot of miles on these cars. But I'll get it done, you guys. I just need gas. I'm not even worried about the food. Just keep me fueled. You know, I'll go get a cornfield, and we'll deal with that, guys. I will do what's necessary. Even if the fuel isn't there, I'll start hitchhiking, because I'm gonna get it done. But it would be a lot easier if there were certain things that I didn't have to worry about, right? I didn't have to wake up and say, oh, where am I gonna sleep tonight? If I didn't have to wake up and say, well, how am I gonna get to the next town? If you guys help me eliminate those thoughts so that I can focus all my energy on this solution, then you would be able to greatly see a change in the output production. But every day when I got to wake up and I'm like, okay, where am I gonna get a room, right, or whatever, then that takes a lot of my thought away, and I wind up having to waste it on that. So you guys will be able to help me out a lot in focusing and being able to reach that destination by just simply help make sure that I had the resources that I need. That's why I say that if you like the service that I'm providing, you want to see more of it, then you guys will ensure that I have the resources that I need to be able to accomplish it. I don't need a house. Yeah, hell, I don't need a hotel room. I'm good with sleeping in the car, guys. But I do need gas because we're down to a last tank of gas right now. So yeah.
Anybody wants a debt jubilee coming their way or a freedom jubilee? This is the mission right now. I haven't seen anything that's close or even had anybody talk about jubilee. So we appreciate you, Tanawah, and look forward to the next one.